everyone, and welcome.
Yes, welcome. We're so excited to have you here on this auspicious and omnipotent full moon, August 11th, 2022. And with us tonight, we have someone who we're extremely excited about celebrating and connecting with.
Yes, our dear friend, Kaylaa Kayce. Oh my goodness, there's just so much that we can say. I mean, where do we even begin? I mean,
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you are one of the most profound and gifted people that I've ever met, and I'm like in so many ways. I mean, it's infinite and it's ongoing. And then just when I think I know who you are, you pop out of the, Jack in the Box with like another trick up your sleeve.
Oh, this is going to be a good night. And I keep fussing with this, not because this was the one piece of jewelry from my mother that I kept when she passed in 2014. I haven't had it on for several years, and it just like showed up. So it's like, so I'm looking at myself like the kids. Okay, let's get right into the kids. So the kids will be on and they're doing themselves up and they're looking at each other, and it's just, I'm doing the same thing. No wonder they enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I think it's so significant, coming into a place of greater wholeness. I mean, I feel like the necklace is so symbolic of this full moon energy, which is like propelling us, so deeply into an invitation of coming into greater wholeness and integration and acceptance of all the fractals of ourselves, the ones that are, easier to integrate, the ones that are a little bit more challenging. So, but before we get into too much more, I feel like we want to really give you a proper introduction, so that everybody that's joining us can have the full, or not even close to the full scope of, of the profundity of who you are.
Yes, I would love to read a little bit about from your bio, and we'll include all of it in the show notes, but just, I mean, you guys.
Sit back and enjoy, okay.
Kaylaa is an intuitive channel, sound oracle, conscious parenting coach, and multidimensional teacher. She works with harmonic frequencies to adjust and bring stability to emotional energies of hybrid and crystal children. Her unique connection to emotional frequency acts to bridge a child's higher dimensional intergalactic energies with their physical structure here on the earth plane. Kaylaa has a master's degree in education and is a licensed intervention specialist. For 15 years, she's worked as a teacher counselor of children with severe emotional and behavioral disabilities while immersed in the third dimensional educational system. Her multidimensional connection created an environment that allowed her students to safely release and transmute their discordant energies. Kaylaa founded Young Ascended Masters in 2021, incorporating her knowledge and understanding of emotional development, brain-based learning, meditation, and spirituality to guide and mentor spiritually gifted youth and their parents in the movement to higher consciousness. Wow.
Yeah.
And you were both incredible guest teachers on Young Ascended Masters in the past year, and this is like such fun. So you're gonna even know some of these kids that are going to be coming up today, so that's really neat.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, having had the opportunity and honor to engage in a fair amount of different platforms and podcasts at this point in time, hands down, one of my absolute favorite experiences. I mean, those children and you and your energy and what you bring to them and what you open up for them and to them. I mean, it's magical. It's absolutely magical witnessing it and participating in it and just seeing, how you and your, the shining light that you are just immediately engage the light within these children. It's really a beautiful, and graceful experience. So thank you so much and I know you've had a chance to do it too, right?
Yes, the space that you create, the space to really explore and be your authentic self and to bring forward these incredible gifts. I mean, I was like, can I be a kid? Because like I would have loved to have that experience. And I know that you're not just assisting, kids, you're also helping parents to, on their journey of being conscious parents. And so it's so multidimensional. And I'd love to just start by asking you about your journey and how it led to the work that you're doing in the world today.
Okay. Knowing that you were going to ask that, this took a whole different response than anything I've ever given before. So stuff that you guys don't even know, and whoever needs to hear this, I know you're there because I didn't really expect to say some of this. So it's all good. So really, for me, it's taken information coming from other channels or people coming into my life to kind of either plant the seed or activate codes. And as I'm looking back, 2015, oh wait, I have to stop. Really, edit recordings, I don't care. You guys, on the one hand, this is like totally surreal, and I'm about to talk about 2015 as if I remember myself when. Well, for the audience, I just have to say, I remember Brooklyn when she was giving sessions out of this little closet space office, and you were the first safe person for me to even try some energy work on. And it took about like 3 or 4, no, it wasn't 3 or 4 years, it just seems like that. It took me a while to actually believe that maybe your answer was true and you weren't just being kind. And then Emily, I think the first time with you, we were all like, oh my gosh, on the call that we're all struggling to be seen, and look at us now. So as that little introduction, and if anybody, contacts behind the scene, I've got Brooklyn on a recording and she just looks so cute.
Oh my gosh.
Her little baby self, yes.
Literally was in a closet that if I were to push myself 2 inches away from the desk, I would hit the back of the wall. But that's what happens when you have 3 teenage boys and you get, end up over here in the corner, right? They take up all the space.
Mom space, yeah, it's resorting to a closet. So anyway, 2015, I ran across somebody who did Akashic record reading. I had no idea what that was, except I knew she was amazing with energy. And the information I got was that I came here to experience. I'm like, oh, well, so I was like 55 at the time. And she told me that I was in this place of like teeter-tottering between the 3rd dimension and the 5th dimension. And I was in 4, and it's like, no judgment, but it's either time to step into leadership or just keep this weird experiencing lifetime going. So what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, wow. So that made so much sense as I go back and look at my life. And I don't want to spend all this time talking like all these weird things that have happened, but it's like those experiences led me to look at this quote on the wall that says, we walk our human story that we're meant to transmute in others. And as I discover I'm here to work with the emotional bodies and chakras and vibrational realignment of kids and adults, I look back at my life, and that was the first time that it all started making sense. It's like, and I must have been on the fast track, because it's like, this must be the lifetime. You got to get it all done now because you got things to do a little bit later. And just to give you an example, starting from childhood, it was probably the pattern of what is the deepest experience of separation that you can have. Okay, let's jump in. So I had a younger sister pass away when I was 4. She was 2.5. So my whole consciousness was her. So however merged you are as children. And that started just this amplification of family issues with parents raising 3 other kids with a child deceased, and my own, like, all of a sudden like, my baby's gone. So I carried that my whole life, and it really, here's mom. It wasn't until about 2 months ago that I was looking at still releasing some of that grief, that I had this clear sense that, oh my gosh, all of this sadness and grief and depression that I had for the first 25 years of my life was a lot of my family's, a lot of my mom's, and not recognizing spiritual gifts when I was a kid, or even spirituality in the healthy sense until I was in my 20s. I must have been really empathic as a kid, because I just took it all on. And it wasn't until recently that allowing myself to feel this once again, this deep, just sobbing, like, what are the neighbors going to think, kind of sobbing. And I got that little glimpse of separation, and my mom came to mind, and it was like, all of a sudden it stopped. It was like just click of a finger. And it was this recognition of, oh my gosh, this wasn't mine. Yes, I was very sad to lose a sibling, but that level of intense grief, it was astounding. I mean, it just truly was one more level of really understanding what these kids are experiencing, coming in and holding the weight of the collective in their own depression and sense of meaninglessness, and how to help them see that what's yours and what's not is, again, one of the huge themes that always comes up. And then, so even going back to that, oh, let's not stop there. Let's throw in some family dysfunction. And then I was entered probably a stage of really being clinically depressed by the time I was a teenager, but nobody knew it. It was always this perfectionism. I'm good in sports. My saving space was education and homework, and I could deep dive into that. So I was very successful on the outside. And this sounds like a lot of people's stories. It's like nobody knows the hell that you're in on the inside. And if you're really good at covering it up, I'm not sure it's always better,
Yeah.
And that's what I think one of the reasons identifying with so many of these kids, one of my own personal challenges has been to make sure that all of that is clear enough in me, so I'm not projecting it onto the kids, nor taking and giving any of that to them, because one of the common things lately, especially, is just such severe sense of purposelessness and depression. And like, as parents, how do I help my kids? And it's just like heartbreaking to be a part of watching that, and knowing spiritually that they're also here living out a blueprint. So I'm an aunt. My blueprint was not the parenting track, and I know why, because honestly, I don't know if I could do what you guys are doing, you parents out there. I mean, I truly, I don't even, like, 1,000 honors on a daily basis of how you live your own individual path and be companions for these kids, and talk about surrendering, like, on a daily, hourly basis. Between, I was trying to, like, think the path of a parent, the theme. So if my theme was even like great separation and emotional understanding, there isn't anybody who's a parent that doesn't have the theme of self-compassion, self-forgiveness. How do you do what you do without every day going, oh darn, I just screwed up, did I screw up, is that okay? Or yeah, so it's
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful, and and you are a parent to many. You're stepping in and you're helping to fill in the spaces and the places for the children and for the parents, because I know a lot of what you do is working with the inner child. And as we know, even those of us who are parents, we're parents to the biological children that choose to come through us, right? But we're also learning how to step into our spiritual, adult spiritual operating system and becoming the parents of ushering home our inner children, right? The fragments of ourselves, the timelines, where our parents, of course, as we know, they weren't given any sort of rule book or, guidepost to be able to do that. So you came in such an epic time, because as we're in this entire collective ascension right now, right? It's not just a few people here and there. I mean, the entire collective is given the opportunity right now, according to, of course, their unique blueprints, to experience this, right? So what better time for you to pop in here, and thank you for doing so, right? And to help to give some more structure, if you will, and guidance to, okay, how do we go about this? How do we usher our own children, these profound beings, in here, assisting them, and holding space for them when society and the structures of society are still so interwoven and separation and all sorts of layers and levels of distortion, right? How can we hold space for them, and so that they can continue to, illuminate and really step into their authentic selves and navigate through it? Yes, because we know they chose to come in and to have both. And so, I mean, it's so epic what you're able to bring in and to share, and to, the community and the connection and the space, and, giving them the tools to navigate through those stormy inner weather, right? Because, I can speak for myself too, and I'm sure Em can, we all go through those pockets, in this lifetime, I feel like.
Yeah, and the quote that you shared at the beginning is so perfect. What we experience, we help to transmute in others. I mean, I love that. It's so beautiful. And, what degree of empathy to be able to, not only experience that, but be able to relate to others experiencing that. And so one thing that I'm so curious about, when I look at your bio and so much experience, you have a master's in education, and you spent so much time, in also, more traditional systems of education. And so it almost, for me, appears like this bridge, this magical bridge that you are helping people to navigate. So I'm just so curious to learn about your experience with that, foundational experience with the educational system and what you're doing now.
Okay. Yeah, those are great questions. And part of even looking back, trying to, how do you summarize a lifetime in like this initial couple of moments? It wasn't, well, in my 20s, I had no idea I wanted to be a teacher. Actually, I did not want to be a teacher. So when I left college, I majored in math. So yeah, Brooklyn, this is where my left brain, I come by it legitimately. The analytical mind, I'm really good at that. Majored in math, didn't know what I wanted to do with it because I had no goals for my life. It's depression. I barely was in a survival mode each and every day, from probably 15 years old to 27 and a half, to be exact. But in the meantime, so I entered the business world, systems analyst. And this is the part that I want to just normalize and say this is okay. There's been a lot of conversation from parents about their kids just really being distraught, and the whole questions of medication and depression and when do I see a therapist, and my gosh, these therapists are going to think my kid's crazy because they're hearing voices and doing energy and I don't know what to do. And in that sense, it's really been an amazing place for me to be sharing that kind of experience, and the education and the emotional, social, emotional, and all that stuff. But my own journey led me to explore the metaphysical in my 20s, put aside things like Catholic Church and doctrine and teaching, and be open to reincarnation, which was like the key for me to seriously not taking my own life. It was, there's no way in, I'm going to say it, there's no way in hell I'm going to come back and redo this. If reincarnation is real, if I didn't do my lessons, I don't want to come back and do this. And I'm not even joking. It literally kept me alive. And the culmination of that depression, even though I'm totally successful and making $50,000 a year and all this stuff, literally I was in counseling, put on medication, went that whole route, and it still wasn't enough. And I talk about the ultimate surrender. It was either my life or take time off of work, put myself into a 30-day treatment center for codependency. Didn't even tell family until like the day before I went, because they were then going to be invited down for a family week. And they thought, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy for, like, what are you doing? It was, I remember driving there and it's like, if this doesn't work, then this is over. So as I look at my own struggle these days, and I'm like, oh man, do I need to reach a crisis to really surrender? It's like, yeah, I guess I did. And in this, I'm here to experience, I guess, when I do this, I'm jumping all in. I mean, it's like down to the last couple days of, am I going to stick around? Okay, let me surrender to what people are going to think of me, the judgments, the questioning, but whatever spirit is alive in me was strong enough to get me to make that decision against all 3D odds. And I guess even in reflecting on that today, going, my friends don't know that. Whatever we have to do for ourselves or for our kids, forget this spiritual crap, to be honest with you. Okay, it's like, well, we don't want to, hear me when I say that, I know you do, but it's that, oh my gosh, the medications, and I don't want to like spoil spiritual connections and therapy, and it's also, I know it's because of their spiritual giftedness, but if something is that deep that there's a loss of hope and a loss of physical chemistry, whatever it is, it's like whatever lengths that we need to go to provide that support, it's okay. And seriously, that was the first space that I had to release the anger, to release the energy that was blocked. It was my first experience beating the crap out of a pillow with a bat, that literally I had spastic colon. I was on medications for spastic colon by the time I was in my 20s, that I put my dad on a pedestal. I put the church up there. I beat the crap out of it. I finally passed through the fear to express the anger. And that was the last time I needed medication for a spastic colon. It was just like that. And it was the first time in my life that I saw this. I didn't know what energy was, but I saw the emotional effects disappear with an emotional release. And it was like magic. Now, did that fix my life? No, but it lifted the depression for the first time in my life, which then opened up everything else that was happening, and got into a 12-step group where the spirituality allowed that surrendering again. Seriously, Jesus, young ascended master Yeshua, like plopped down in my passenger seat one day as I was setting the attention of like meeting him, because I saw his presence in someone else's life that I knew, and my life hasn't been the same. And realizing the collectives that I am connected to is the Christ collective, and Yeshua is my guy, when all else fails, and I'm trying to figure out who are my guides and the cosmic families and who the cosmic family. It's like, as you would say, Brooklin, here it is. This is the ultimate guide. If I don't know any of the other ones, even if I feel their presence, it's still, this is my north, you know? And I promise it's going to be 25 words or less. I have a YouTube video that tells my life story, so I won't repeat it here, but it's so much fun because the next thing is Yeshua landed, and 2 years later, I'm in the convent. I spent 10 years in the convent. Don't ask why. I didn't like the church. I didn't feel accepted in the church, but again, it was one of those apparent patterns that I just saw tonight of, darn, if I'm going to go in, I am jumping in. I'm jumping into the center of this Catholic Church convent. The women were awesome. The service, the mission is what attracted me, but I'm either going to die in here or I'm going to heal from whatever, all that I took on the first 30 years of my life. I didn't die. But it was that, also that surrendering 10 years later to who am I within that structure, because I lost myself, I lost Yeshua, I lost my personal spirituality in this conformity that I didn't even know I was doing. So I know you and Brooklin and I talked all these like past lives of submission and vows, and you know, it's like, okay, let's get rid of all those too, you know. So the gift of that, again, that I realized tonight, it was the first time that anybody said, what's your passion? You're not going to be getting paid any money because you're not living about poverty. What is going to get you up each and every morning when it's not the typical financial reason that so many of us live? So to me, I see that experience as this amazing chance to ask that question at age 35. I mean, who gets such a gift? And the answer was, why am I working with these kids? I shadowed one of the nuns who was a pastoral minister in a youth detention center. And I am standing there like in my dress up clothes, sister going by sister, and I'm bowed, and I walk into the sexual predator double lockdown unit of this detention center as she's working with one of her clients. And I'm standing there trying to look not scared, you know, and I look over and there's like 8 bunk beds and 13 to 18-year-olds. And I look literally this far away from me and there's this kid staring at me. And he looks at me and he goes, so like, you a nun? And I'm like, yeah, trying to be cool, you know? And then he just shakes his head and he puts his head in his pillow and he looks up again and he looks me up and down and he says, so like, you don't get no sex? So here's these sexual predators at age 5, 15, so traumatized, so sexualized, so beyond belief that such a thing is even possible for someone to entertain and live out. And it was in that moment, oof, it still gives, it's like the spark of God was in this kid, this throwaway from society, marginalized, double down, lock up by the time he's 15. And for whatever gifted blessing was, oh my God, I see it. And it was like, I want, my desire is to help them see it too. And from there is when I went back to school. Didn't want to be a teacher, but I was going to be a social worker. And I realized that kids that I came in contact with, again, these were severe emotional behavioral challenge kids that I wanted to be connected to. And I heard that what they all have in common is that they stopped learning at an early age based on trauma, based on, when you've got all that crap going on in your life, learning is not your priority. Surviving is your priority. And having a child be given a choice between a label bully or a label dummy, they're all going to pick bully. So what ends up happening in school is they start falling behind. they can't read, they start getting made fun of, they need to like self-protect, and the bully comes out. And from then on, it's over. And here you have these kids in double down lockup. And when I realized that, it's like, no, I don't want to be a social worker and like meeting these kids once a week and, you know, hear their made up story because they got to prove to somebody that they're fine. It was this day after day after day, seeing them consistently and repetitively. And like the highlight of my first year as even a teacher assistant, this kid who hates school, hates everything, and he goes, can you teach me how to write in cursive? I mean, like, we don't even teach kids cursive anymore, but here's this little 5th grader wants to write in cursive.
Too. Your cursive is excellent.
And it's not even nun training. I don't know what it was. But here's this kid, and why he wanted to learn was because he was going to be a basketball star, and he wanted to be able to write his name on the basketball. He didn't care anything else. He wanted to learn how to script his name. And so I'm creating all these little tools and stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you're asking. Of course, we're going to give it to you. But I didn't even realize then that that's what today's kids are learning. You know, they don't want to learn. They can't. Da, 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 da. With the passion and the drive behind it, they're asking to learn. So here we go back to education today and homeschooling, and how do we satisfy that educational need in our kids? Is it Common Core that they need to do everything in the same way and reach the low bar? And gosh, if we just address their passions, it's all self-initiated, which is why full versal around, I mean, so many people are, as many as can perhaps, want to pull their kids out and do unschooling or homeschooling. As a spiritually gifted child, the amplification of struggles within the system is even greater. So as parents are doing this new paradigm of parenting based on letting the child lead them in what they need, it's a transition to then look at education. Oh my gosh, if I'm doing this with my parenting and letting my child lead, I need to look at the education, because this is where they're like wilting, and the sensitivities and the empathic and all the stuff that they're picking up from the kids in the classroom, not to mention the curriculum stuff, you know, all that stuff you guys have heard and or dealing with. And boy, you know, I just went, let me talk about ADHD, because I just went somewhere. I will own it. I also have some experience in knowing this active mind. I'm gonna stop now.
Well, I mean, the stories that you have and the richness of your experience in this lifetime are just like so amazing. I mean, every time, I've known you for a very long time now, and every time, you know, you come into this place of sharing, it's like, wow, another like amazing and incredible story of inspiration and, you know, an expansion. And for you, for the individuals that you're, you know, working with, I mean, teacher, student, student, teacher, always, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, you know, I think it's beautiful. And, you know, you joke around about having ADD and bouncing all around, but we know that the flow of what comes through us is always divinely and perfectly orchestrated. And what you brought through is inspiring, and it touches, you know, in so many different ways, so many different people and what they're going through. And, you know, and it gives people an opportunity to reflect on things, you know, in a new way, right? Like allowing these hurdles and these things that are taking place in our life to become catalysts for us to say, okay, you know, what am I supposed to do with this, right? Okay, other than integrating it and owning it and, you know, using our own tools, and techniques to do so. You know, what more can I do to, again, coming back to that saying that you shared with us, the quote, it's like, how can I now allow this to be a gateway and a tool to assisting others who are, you know, having similar experiences? So it's really remarkable, the layers of how you've been in service in this lifetime, and you now continue to be. You know, maybe share with us, if you would, a little bit about, you know, how you feel, or like how you're approaching the parenting side of things, you know, assisting the parents, because, you know, it's a system, right? It's not, you know, if we go in and we focus on the child and assist them, and, you know, coming up with new ways of integration and exploration, and, you know, diving into different new ways of seeing things and approaching things, and yet we leave the parents out of the mix as to what's taking place, you know, it's like half the system, you know, is there, right? So can you share a little bit with us about that?
Yeah. Well, for one, what's interesting is the majority of parents who have found me and the kids have been active are usually the ones who are already on a spiritual path of some sort. And it's their own spiritual journey that have connected, you know, through so and so and so and so, and this sort, you know, how we are all gathered here. So the kids that are coming have already been set with a foundation of the spiritual practice of the parent, or they're just now starting to wake up because their child is 7, 10, 12 years old, and the parent is like, whoa, what is really going on? And it has caused that inner journey to kick off for themselves. So as far as even the parenting and some of the groups that I'm doing, this isn't going to be any new information to many people on the call right now. So it's, you know, saying something that like, yeah, we'll just be open to whoever needs to hear this. But so these kids, they're coming in, they're here to raise the vibration of all of us, bring us to that level, and in the process are challenging anything and everything that is known to parents. Like, there is no rule book here. There may be, what there literally was for our parents. I mean, seriously, there were books, you know, and you go here and they're developing there, and that's not there. So everything, every doubt, every flaw, every whatever, the kids are pushing through and demanding something more. And what they're demanding is that authenticity. So one of the gifts that they all, 85, 90% of the kids that I've met share is this ability to have this different perspective. You know, they're here bringing a new perspective, and they're challenging our perspectives of the whole human potential that we've owned for ourselves. So it's almost like a and thing. You know, they're coming and showing us what our potential is, and they're also challenging us to change our perspective of who our kids are. And if we don't change our perspective, we're going to still be relating to them from the old paradigm of everything that we grew up with. And as we know, from diseases to beliefs to everything, it's passed on to us. And there's the ancestral lines of healing that we talk about. But they're demanding more than that. One of the things that I keep have shared is we need to change the familiar of the kids are my property. I'm responsible for them. They're a reflection of me. I need to protect that at all costs. So if they're out of line, oh my gosh, they're having a meltdown at Walmart. What are people going to think? They're going to think I'm a bad parent. And then it just begins to cave in on itself, where if we adopt the perspective of what else could be happening. My kid, or any kid, the judgment of they're having a meltdown. Their parents should know better, or maybe don't even bring them to Walmart. Well, you know what? The frequencies of the lights, the interactions of the people in the
Thank you.
aisles.
Saying that for years.
Yeah, I mean, you just walk in and these kids are inundated with frequencies and feelings and seeing dead people and can't tell if it's a real person or a crossed over person, and how are we supposed to assist them in that? So one, going back to what are my own beliefs when I'm triggered by my child. What is being triggered? Is it that belief that I'm a bad parent? So is it a matter of worthiness? Is it a matter of boundaries? Is it, you name it, and kids trigger it, which is why it's so amazing that anybody agreed to have kids in their life. You guys didn't know any better, which is probably the best way. I didn't know what I was getting into in this lifetime, nor did other people in this transitionary time, or would we have chosen this? I mean, seriously. But yes, I know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, I agree though. If I could just interject for 1 second on, being a mother of 3 teenage boys. I mean, they are this, and having lots of clients with children, and so forth. I mean, they are not only system busters, but they are lie detectors. They are authenticity detectors, and you cannot get a single thing past them. They will call you out, even when you think you're, like, okay, one of those things that, old belief systems, like, oh, I'm going to just kind of paint a little bit of a different picture on this. So, so they go to bed and they'll get their rest, and, and they're just like, they drop in, right? And they're like, I'm going to have to call BS on that. Like, you're, and it's like, wow. So, I mean, and this was like when they were, 3, 4 years old, like, and I thought, okay, we're moving into a whole new paradigm. And this was before I had, in the early stages of their development, I hadn't even, begun to, my journey of awakening, really. So, and then when that started to take place, I think what I hear you saying too is like one of the most important things I feel and I sense through my experience here is really to embrace the knowing that these are infinite beings. These are, infinite, just as we are infinite creator beings and unique individuations of source embodied here for, a blink in time, if you will. So are they. And even though, yes, we all fall in and we fall into the veils of illusion and we forget everything, at the core essence of all of us is that eternal being. And they came in with far less of the veils, pulled down over. So, I think to your point in sharing, one of the most beneficial and helpful things for me on the path was when I got to this place of my own, inner sort of sovereignty and to a place of awareness, conscious awareness, whereby I started to realize like, okay, all right, yes, I'm here, to guide them through. They chose to come in here at this time of massive transition where so many of the systems are still so indoctrinated in separation and the third density. And yet, they chose, everything is chosen so perfectly. They chose me to be asleep when they were born in the early stages, and then they knew I was going to start to awaken. They were catalysts for that, and it's like, then you get to that point and you realize, okay, wait a second. If I have a blueprint and I'm a God sovereign free being, then why wouldn't I be applying that to every other being, including my own children? And so let's shift into that perspective so that we can navigate through all of this, with that broader lens. And And I love that. I know, having talked to you and having seen you in action, and you know, hearing some of your talks and so forth, that this is something that you really assist people in engaging in, right?
Yeah, and the two kind of prongs of that is one, facilitating community. And I know you both are doing such amazing things with light worker community building. And it's probably one of the most satisfying pieces of this, is having this space for parents to come together. One, I do the remote parent groups. It's like twice a month, and it's open to any parent. It's not just kids in my group or something. From people with infants to 30-year-olds, the parenting experience is the same. And coming together in that group, either newbies to even the awakening process, to, you know, people who have been doing healing work and like are the gurus of whatever. Bad choice of words, but you know what I'm saying. So there's like this coming together and this mentoring for each other that's available, while at the same time walking with them on their journey, and they happen to be a parent. So I don't know what I'm getting. So our parent groups are turning into these amazing communities of women that have such a depth and an openness to be companions for these kids. So I get as much out as anybody coming on the call. And I know you guys, when we do individual work like that, it's always this mutual back and forth. But between knowing what I know with some social emotional and behavioral tricks and tools that the kids don't even know you're playing tricks and tools on them, it's always fun. You know, it's like, what technique or what can you suggest? So we do a lot of sharing of that, but it is that support. And it's, you know, most parents are coming with questions like, you know, one, people are really tentative these days to admit that my child looks like he has behavioral problems. And I don't know if that's a spiritual community thing, but I've had a couple of sessions and the topic is, well, I've got a very highly energetic child, and I'd like to talk and get some tools or techniques or some grounding or whatever. And what comes down to, when I share some of my experience of being in a mainstream classroom with labeled emotionally disturbed children, the behaviors are so similar, and the label just doesn't belong there. It's these kids coming in being inundated with energy like we all are every day without having the knowledge or the tools, and it's explosive. And then your child comes back an hour later and is genuinely, legitimately so sorry. And I don't know why. I love you, Mom. I don't know where that came from. And you know, how one as a parent dealing with those interactions and those dynamics is really tough. I mean, this human journey of the parenting, and it's awesome to be able to share that with each other in a safe space. Like, you can say things that you can't say anywhere else. And even your parenting, like playground folks, aren't going to hear that your child is opening portals in the middle of the night while they sleep, or, you know. So it's been such a gift to be able to offer that space. And then I've been stepping into private sessions that are more conscious parenting coaching. The words really don't do justice to the potential. And you guys know, when you do individual sessions, how do you even put words to what it is? Because it never is the same.
Yeah, it's true. It's easier just to say, to kind of give a generalization of the different tools that are in the tool basket, and then just let everybody know we just meet each other where we are in the now moment.
Yeah.
And your intention, and you know, and take it from there, right? I mean, that's realistically, that's what takes place every time, right?
Yeah. And so much of it is just really even giving each other permission to have the doubts and to know that, gosh, because these kids are triggering you. Yes, that is it. It's exactly right. They will be triggering you, and the difficult thing is 24 hours a day, it's all about the kids. So having that opportunity to really recognize what just got triggered, where is that from, how is there a way to release that, is it connected to a belief, again, that I should be doing this. Just having a little bit of space to explore all of that. And if you can get like, an hour and a half on a Wednesday night, it's like this place to let down, so it's
Absolutely. I can see how that would be so immensely valuable. And also, too, to maybe explore for these parents, some of the abilities. I know that I'm sure it's just such a journey of evolution and growth together, and so to have somebody to really discuss, explore, deepen into what the experience is of really connecting with these children with such astounding abilities.
Yeah, it's it's no mistake, when we hear about, or that's probably not the right way to say it, but when we hear about these children being crystal children and diamond children, I mean, what do crystals and diamonds do? They reflect, right? They act as, mirrors. We can, they're frozen lights, they emanate, and bring forth the ability for, for us to really see, okay, what is taking place within me that's, desiring to be healed and to be explored and to be recognized. So they really come in, to express what is igniting on such epic levels right now of the archetype of the mirror. And so, what I hear you saying is you're recognizing this, you're assisting these parents as they get triggered to go in and see, okay, what is the core reason for me being triggered right now, right? And instead of just trying to see how we can fix the child and try to make them fit into a mold that is no longer relevant and is, in the process of completely crumbling through this age of full disclosure and transparency, it's like, no, let's, shift into this, greater awareness of these are like these profound little gurus, right? Which is like, I know that the terminology of that's even outdated, but they really are. They're abundant, and the opportunity that they bring forth for us to go in and see, okay, what is still going on here? What can be shifted? How can I see myself more clearly, right? I know this of my own experience because every single exchange that takes place is an opportunity for me to have a greater awareness of all the different systems, whether subtle or less subtle, that are playing out within my belief systems, within my emotional body, so shifting the focus away from trying to squeeze them into a fallen system, right? And into a place of like, okay, how can we grow and expand and nourish each other's, personal growth here? Because that's, I think, what we're shifting out of is that paradigm where we think, oh, we're the parent, so we have all the answers, and and we're gonna take these archaic rules and so forth, and and it's like, no, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to to together be on this journey of greater self-awareness and self-discovery, and see where, yes, certain rules and things like this may still, be applicable, so there's not complete chaos taking place, right?
And that's a service too, to like be a, not hands off, but they need that guidance. I mean, they are here to be human. So it's the boundaries, it's the integration of that. Yes, they're wise souls, and they're going to come up with things like, where'd that 4-year-old like say that, but then they're back to running around and playing on the playground. I mean, so they're the child. I'm going to be fascinated about 15, 20 years. I want to see people doing research right now, what we consider normal child development, years of research, 20 years down the road, just what is considered normal in even physical stages, if DNA is changing and all that stuff. I'm just really like, I hesitate to say things now because in 10 years this isn't going to be true anymore. But then again, that's true for all of history, But one of the things that is asked probably most is, how do I support the gifts that are still demonstrated by the child and not I'll have that just programmed out of them? And like my answer, there's like two things. One, it's being and sharing your heart. If you do, being is the key, and expressing who you are in your most authentic self, just like you were saying earlier. It's, no BS, because it's just not worth it, But then there's doing, and in the doing is, one, staying curious, like what's happening with them right now, and instead of that place of restriction where we all go to and take a deep breath and try to control, and it's like, gosh, if you just like, what is it? What is this? What am I seeing? What are they? And staying playful about it. And Brooklyn, you are like always, is like, just breathe through it. And actually, that's probably one of the more important things we can teach to the kids is this whole sharing of our own spiritual journey, between the importance of meditation and breathing and all the time with the kids. I go back to Joe Dispenza's stuff with, if we could teach them from an early age how to be aware that their thoughts create their realities. Truly, if I do nothing else in this lifetime, that kind of teaching, I would just do it full time. The amount of mental programming that I'm still unpacking is like, to save 50 years of that kind of stuff for kids. And I'm sure everybody here is old enough to know just like how long it has taken us to even believe that we create a reality, let alone how to make those adjustments, so to speak, But one of the things I suggest is, like, I came up with this cutesy little acronym. I love it. It's kind of fun. Vibes. So V is validate. If we can validate their experience, no matter what it is, we all know how important that is. And what's really interesting is this whole vibes thing is really almost a self-transformative formula as well. So here we are validating the kids' experiences. How many times don't I validate my own? So it's kind of like this two process at the same time. I is showing an interest, and what is it that they're talking about? If we want that relationship to grow and continue, we need to be interested, not just, oh yeah, okay, honey, no problem. But really, if it's a video game and they're playing video games, sit down and ask them how to play. I mean, really, that validation and interest, everything a child does in their early stages of life is really an extension of who they are. So if they're interested in robot, disrespecting, and not intentionally, but in a way, it's like, oh, you play too much video games, or oh, I don't want you, whatever it is, because there's so many things that we would love to see our children doing, expanding and growing and making judgments on something that we don't think maybe is good for them. But to them, it's who they are. And it's a vehicle of self-expression at a certain level. So if we can understand that and treat it as an extension of themselves, it's going to just like make this relationship golden. I mean, it's going to keep that connection, in a way that I know I never really understood until I actually had a kid. If they're playing Minecraft, they're learning communication, they're online chatting and technology, and these kids are here to like be the technology changers of society. So who knows, you know, where that's going. But so showing that interest, and then B in his vibes goes back to believing them. And if we can't, do not try to BS them, at least believe in them and believe in their perceptions. And like the kid that wakes up after a dream and says, hey, mommy, I was just on the spaceship last night and I was learning how to like fly whatever. And if it's a little too far out there to really believe them, at least don't say, oh yeah, that was nice, I'm so happy for you. They're going to pick that up. They're going to pick your like either dismissive place that you need to go so your mind doesn't explode at the possibility of what he's saying is true. What I've heard kids share is that, not with parents perhaps, but other adults talk to them and they can see the deception. They don't understand why the adults' energy doesn't match the words that they're saying to them. And for younger kids, it can really mess with their minds. Here they are trusting because they trust everybody. And these big people that are supposed to know better aren't being honest. So they start questioning their own reality because the big people are right. I must be wrong. And then immediately they don't believe their own intuition anymore. They don't believe their own knowingness. So as a parent, it's all about connection. I mean, keeping that connection pure. And if it's a matter of, wow, you know, like Johnny, that sounds like an amazing experience on that spaceship you have. Tell me more, you know, and let it go. And that gets into like this E of exploring it. If it's a younger kid, let them draw pictures. If it's an older kid, just like evoke conversation, you know, let them explore it. And it's in their exploration that they're going to start making connections. And then that final S is really sharing our own journey and showing that the spiritual aspect of the unseen is valued. And just to throw this in, one of the things that is really coming up lately in sessions is this: my child used to believe in their gifts and they used to be really interested in this, and the early puberty is happening, and the fear of like seeing this go away or less interested, or believing the programming about everything that's happening in the schools and the jabs and the, you know, the differences in values are starting to really be obvious as they enter these teenage years. And it's really hard not to get scared by that. And so it's like, well, how can I, questions to me, how can I make sure that doesn't go away? Well, what can I do to still honor them as individuals, but make sure they don't go down the wrong path? It's like, there's no answer to that. I mean, and you know, there's continuing to talk about our beliefs and keep those seeds planted. But then there's that letting go that we started talking about earlier, is their blueprint is going to be what it is. And what's that magic formula of allowing, trusting, and truly releasing them, knowing that the universe has got them. And whether it's a matter of that initial influence of our own spiritual journey, that foundation is strong. And what doesn't look like a connection, it's in there somewhere. And then even if it isn't, there's a great book. It's called The Spiritual Child by Dr. Lisa Miller. Highly, highly recommend it. It's about the whole first 10 years of that spiritual foundation being so important. And even a single person in a child's life can help that take root. And directly connected to what I was saying about the puberty and the expanding and individuating spiritually, it's a normal time of transition to where they're literally, it's like the start of their first spiritual quest. I mean, and there's awesome research with brain chemicals and DMT. I mean, just stuff that's happening hormonally that sparks a spiritual quest. And things are researched now, and science is validating that this is happening. And it's like other cultures knew this. They sent their kids out and don't come back until you know, that kind of thing. Well, we don't do that, which is that honoring that transition to say, honey, this is normal. And as a parent, expect there to be this pulling away and this exploring and asking questions. Who am I? Who is God to me? This is what my mom believed. What do I believe? This is what other people have. And I know when I ask those questions, I don't have answers. Many times it may take years. It may take exposure. It probably isn't going to be mom telling them what to believe anymore, or even what she believes. And if anything, what mom believes now is going to be rejected just because they're going to. They need that space. Not everybody, but many need to consciously separate from your belief while they explore themselves. And they may come back, but that separation is going to feel really scary for them, and it's going to feel really scary for parents. And that void for the child may, this Lisa Miller talks about a normal developmental depression period, that void of meaninglessness, meaning, that word. If we can expect that as a normal stage that they're going to go through, we can support them better. We can talk about it. My teenage groups, I just love, I like busting this open. And like, tonight, you guys, we're going to talk about everything your parents don't tell you. They're talking about you. Do you know that your parents talk about you and to other parents? And I'm going to tell you what it is. And these are the concerns that they have. And this is a normal stage of development for a teenager. Don't you think somebody should tell you what you're going through? Don't you think it's time that you know what you're going through? Like, knowledge is power. Let's give it to them. Whether it's ADHD and an expanded mental capacity that's a superpower, let's tell them, yeah, your brain is different than everybody else's. That's so great. Let's figure out how to like make it work in this situation and in that situation and whatever. And normal, you are going to feel this void, and it's okay. And come to the group and talk about it. And if you don't want to come to the group, just come and sit, because I'm telling you, I know teenagers don't talk anymore, except in my group, because Kaylaa says, like, talk to me, huh? It's so much fun. I mean, it's fun, and it's so hard to be with instead of fixing. And the final, one of the biggest lessons I learned, and it goes back to the convent, and it goes back to being this teacher, being in this state of, I'm here for a mission. I'm here to serve. This was like my first calling, really was responding to whatever that call was into religious life, which was real. It was into ministry and into mission, and it just wasn't the right container for it. But as I go back to that, when I left the convent and entered teaching, it's like, if I could just save one child, if I could fix one child from going through the trauma and the depression and the crisis, it will be worth every minute of my time. And that's they even have bumper stickers and posters. If I could save one child, it's worth a teaching career. I don't even know, there's something out there that's like that. Well, I held that belief, and it was a strong desire, and it was beautifully intentioned as a spiritual gift that I'm giving and offering. And it wasn't until about this 2015, in my own spiritual development, that my teacher challenged me a little bit and made me realize that, okay, if I'm putting myself in the role of savior, and the reason I'm bringing this up now is it translates into parenting like perfectly. If I'm here to fix my child, that means it's reflecting back. One, it means I believe they're already not divine perfection. So if I believe I can fix them, the bigger belief is I can save them. Save them from what? They're already perfect. And if we experience what we most need in that projection mirror, what is it about me that I feel that needs to be fixed? And it was in recognizing that, it was one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned. And the first 10 years of teaching, I held that so strongly and felt so responsible, and all the teaching demands anyway, in the classroom and out of the classroom, led to burnout. I mean, a disabling medical disability burnout with an autoimmune condition that came on, and the depression came back, and the full load shutdown. And it wasn't until I realized that part of my own carrying that kind of pressure and responsibility as a teacher took me to that place of disabledness. Parents, day in and day out, if we hold this belief that when they suffer, it's our fault, we're not doing it right, what can I do to make it better? Oh my gosh. Like, oh my gosh. You know, if there's nothing else, just even like taking that in, and it's okay not to have answers for their life. And they may be the kid that's taking on so much karma. They need to go through this. And if my life is any witness to how many times the universe is going to get me back on track, you know, it may take a crisis, and it may take totally bring me to my knees. And I'm turning 63 in October, and it's never too late. So trusting that the child's going to be led to where they're going to need to go. And it may be really rough, and it may be the hardest thing we can do is love them through that, be that keeper of the hope. And I end up just last 5 years or so, this whole calling on Mother Mary. I was in a community that was called Humility of Mary. You know, I was like, we've got a Mary connection, we got a Jesus connection. But being with parents as they're walking through this journey, being with my own niece and nephew and watching them go through some really tough 20-ish, 30-ish pain, once removed as an ant, just tears me apart. And I catch myself, and it's like, okay, just breathe. They're going to be okay. I love them. I let them know that I'm here. And I look at my own 20s, and I had to go through it, and they have to go through it. And yeah, it's seriously, parents, thousand humbles.
Thank you so much for bringing forth so much inspiring wisdom and grace, and all these opportunities for the children and the parents to have support and community, and, you know, ideas, and, you know, creative flow for ways in which to navigate through these uncharted waters that we're upon swimming through right now.
Yeah, it is. It's just so inspiring to hear you share so authentically and with so much passion for what you do. And it's funny because I was listening to an interview with you, and somebody asked you about, you know, future in 50 years, and you just lit up with excitement about the possibilities of, you know, what will be in store. And it just speaks to the amount of love that you have for the kids, for the parents, for the work that you do. And you are such a gift and a blessing to this world.
Thank you. Yeah. And their motivation, okay, I know it's 9:15. I'm looking at my hearing. So part of my mission is like hybrid kids. Well, what's a hybrid kid? Well, it's these ET things. We're not going to go there now, but like 20 years from now is when a larger influx is expected if the collective consciousness continues, and it's today's crystal children that are going to be their parents and the ones welcoming them in. So it's going to be rocking. So, which is my work with the crystals is preparing for the hybrids. And so I'm 63 years old, 20 years, I better start eating organic and getting a little more exercise, because I really want to be here like physically be here. I don't want to be working from the other side. I want to like enjoy what this is all going to look like.
Yeah.
So
Well, it will be, and we're grateful for that. So please tell us, and we'll definitely list it when, in the email and with the replay, but how can someone best get in touch with you when they want to connect with you, excuse me, for a session or a group gathering?
Okay, yeah. Well, Kaylaa, YoungAscendedMasters.com. We didn't even talk about Young Ascended Masters, like all that story. It's so much fun. Seriously, I just invited myself back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the website, YoungAscendedMasters.com. There's various ways to reach out. What I want to offer your group, I don't know if you guys like do special offer, but there's a special offer. And wait, there's more. So so I'm doing individual sessions, whether it's for conscious parenting, my own healing work and sound work has really opened up into some incredible spaces where even realigning your own unique sound signature. It's so cool. Look at that. Hey, I look like Brooklyn. Hey, the energy's moving. Whoa. That's okay. So I'm going to give you a link for putting like a 50% discount on any private sessions if anybody is interested. And then what I'd really be excited about, if you email me, I'm going to set up some discount codes, like my remote meetings for the kids and the parents. Right now, 8 to 12-year-olds and 13 to 18-year-old kids, we have groups separately on Tuesday nights, and then they all come together on one night with a guest teacher, like Brooklyn or like Emily. And if you email me and let me know, look on the site for what's coming up, what month you might be interested in having your child to attend. And however Wix works, it's weird discount codes, but I'll send you stuff that you can sign your child up. And I'm going to offer like 2 months free. And right now we're starting up again in October. Valentea, who is probably on this call right now watching, Valentea with light language, is going to be on in October. Mary Rodwell is coming on in November. And in addition to that, the parent support group, same thing. If you 2 kids, 2 parents each month. Mary Rodwell is actually going to come on to the parent group as well in October, and it's going to be amazing for your opportunities. My child and myself, like in contact in ways that are going to be, she's the alien lady, she's the alien lady. So I want to offer that. And just an aside, I'm going to start some homeschool coaching and offering some resources that are interest-driven, passion-driven, as an adjunct to any of the homeschooling you might be doing, not as a replacement or a co-op in itself, but really offering various levels of support. That's really exciting.
Incredible.
Amazing.
It's just so many things. It's like, whoa, it's going out there, which is fine because it's taken up a beautiful momentum and energy that is so unique just in this past 6 months. But,
yeah. We're excited, and I know that that's listening and joining in and who will listen, with the recording for those who are in places that are in the middle of the night or morning right now. Everybody is going to be so excited to receive these beautiful offerings. And we do hope that you will come back and share more of your experience and journeys and all that's taking place, as everything is moving so rapidly and expansively now. Who knows what will take place even in the course of the next week, let alone, 5-6 months from now.
Yeah, I just noticed like the chat. I haven't stopped talking long enough to even. Can you give me a second just to read that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh. Somebody shared that their kids are so lucky to have you, assuming that's a parent.
Yeah, that's beautiful and true.
Well, this one came in. I'm not going to. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm aware of time right now. Is there a way you guys can send me this from Bridget to even take time to get back to her? Perhaps not right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe Bridget, if you could put in an email address, I'd love to respond. Honestly, I probably need a second or two to even reprocess your question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with listeners?
Oh, parents or non-parents, we got this, and we can't do it wrong. And I know, Brooklyn, you're going to be like, oh my God, she finally has it. It's really this journey of judgment and expectation. It's too much. Let's not do it anymore, And if we could teach that to our kids at an early age, wow, what a gift. So.
Love it. Yeah. When we could share the message of, choosing joy and, curiosity and exploration and togetherness, we definitely have figured out the elixir for greater, just embodiment and, enjoying this experience. So I love that you're in the sweet space of surrender and bringing forth that message to everybody. And we certainly look forward to having you back again. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everybody else for being here as well and bringing your beautiful hearts and light to this discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you as well. It's okay. Yeah, now I see that. I looked at a chat and I got distracted. I can never do this. You guys are the great hosts. You'll have to fill me in later.
We love you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate
Love you.
opportunity to talk. Thanks.
So much fun. Thank you all.
Right.